Hi and welcome back to another video. Today I'll be talking about how anxiety can lead to depression and self-harming behavior, and we'll be going through the different ways that I've learned to cope with these difficulties over the years. Having gone through anxiety since an early age, I understand how easy it can be at times to feel down and discouraged, and that during tough periods I find it important to slow things down and take time to figure things out. When it comes to my anxiety, even though I've made progress over the years, there are times when I occasionally go through a decline in motivation that tends to lead to frustration and stress, which can happen for a few reasons. I find the most common cause of this is to occasionally feel like I've hit a wall and to realize that I may have been unable to overcome a certain problem or limitation that I had previously hoped to have resolved. In times like these, it's easy for me to go from being stressed out and frustrated to feeling disappointed and developing a negative and critical attitude. In the past, there have also been times when, due to various difficulties, I've lost hope and have resigned myself or began indulging in unhelpful habits such as sleeping late, giving up on exercise, becoming avoidant, wasting time on distractions, which all collectively led me on a downward spiral into depression. And it was in fact during these times that I began harming myself by doing the wrong things, like consistently drinking too much alcohol, finding ways of hurting myself, and by abandoning all goals in my life. In fact, prior to having made a decision to find a way out of the seemingly endless cycle, I struggled a lot with negative tendencies that fueled my depression over the years, until one day I became so tired of being stuck in a state of emotional suffering with no end in sight that I decided to do everything in my power to get out of my situation. After some time, I found that my outlook on life began to improve and that I was becoming more energetic, which made it easier to engage in productive activities that eventually helped to build up my self-esteem. In fact, doing this has really helped to create a solid foundation that has built up my character and has changed my attitude towards myself and towards life as a whole. Now that I've talked about my experience with anxiety and self-harming behavior, let's go through the different ways of coping with these situations, which I'll break down into 5 steps. As I've described through sharing my past experience, the most important first step to reversing negative and self-harming behavior is a desire to change. This is something that needs to come from us, as there's nobody who can make that decision on our behalf, and which can happen only once we've had enough of going through emotional hardship. Once that decision has been made, the second step is to focus on setting small, daily goals and fulfilling them. This can be anything from limiting the time spent on one's mobile phone, to tidying up a corner of one's home, paying an overdue bill, clearing one's laundry basket, learning to make a simple new recipe, to name a few examples. In fact, I found that focusing my time on achieving small goals on a daily basis has benefited me greatly and has helped to keep me mentally and physically active while building up my abilities over time. This also requires some level of thought and creativity to continue looking for new things to do. Although at times it may be tempting to ditch the whole process altogether, it's very important to stick with it. This brings me to the third step, which is to make setting small goals and fulfilling them into a long-term habit. This ensures that we don't fall back into our negative habits and will continue building up confidence by keeping active and by engaging in productive habits. The next and fourth step is to evaluate one's progress. Every now and again, I find it important to look back and to evaluate any progress that I may have made by considering the various ways that I've changed over time. One good way of measuring to see how much progress we might have made is to look at where we came from in terms of comparing you from today to yourself at the time when the decision to change had been made. It may be also helpful to write these comparisons down as a means to keep track of them over time. By doing this, we may find that issues that were previously a cause of difficulty and concern don't impact us as much and may have been resolved altogether. On the other hand, there may be an issue that keeps recurring, in which case it's important not to get discouraged, but to maintain the process of fulfilling small goals every day. This brings me to the fifth and last step, which is to spend some time contemplating on ways of improving further. This can be done in the form of expanding one's goals to include setting up an exercise routine, getting up earlier in the morning, improving one's nutrition, or any other activity that you might find to be helpful. Whatever the improvements may be, the important thing is to remain consistent and to occasionally evaluate whether they are making a positive difference in life. In fact, I found that instinctively following these steps has made a world of difference and has helped me to reverse my downward spiral of negativity and depression, eventually transforming it into a mindset of productivity and care. This brings me to the end of this video. Please let me know in the comments section below what are your ways of dealing with anxiety and depression. Next time, I look forward to talking about different types of physical exercises that have helped me to deal with anxiety over time. Until then, thank you for watching and see you next time.